learn about chain rule with product rule and the quotient rule. And I'm going to set my screen here. So before we begin, I want to go over some exponent rules because we're going to be doing some factoring and exponent rules. So you should remember that when you have a fraction to a power, you can pretty much, I hate to say distribute, but you can take each the top and the bottom and raise it to that power. So this would be x to the third over y to the third. This one, if it's a quantity, you take the entire quantity to the third, and then the bottom's entire quantity to the third. Okay, this is going to come into play with what we do in a minute. Let's talk about division. When you divide like bases, like the rule is you probably did it with like, x to the seventh over x to the fifth, and you'd be like, oh, that's just x squared. You keep the base, and what are you really doing to the exponents? You're subtracting. Well, it's the same thing here. You keep the base, and you subtract the exponents. 1/2 minus a negative 1/2, which becomes plus, and that would equal x to the 1/2 plus 1/2, which is just x to the 1. So those are just some basic exponent rules. They're going to come up again. Let's try some simplifying by factoring. So as you can see here, there's two groups that are going on. How do I know there's two groups? Anything with a plus sign separates the groups. So I have this group and I have this group. And I'm going to factor by grouping. Before I factor by grouping, I'm going to try to clean this up. And the way that I like to clean it up, you see how there's a number here and a number here and a number here, and this is all multiplication. I like to put my numbers in the front. So like these two numbers can be put together. What is 2 times 4? Well, it's 8. And then I'm going to write the quantities. And then the ones that I can see look the same, I kind of put them in the back there. And then that too, I'm just going to put it in the front again. I like it. I like my coefficients in the front. And just rewriting the problem. That's all I did. Now I'm going to factor. I'm going to look at these two groups. And I'm going to say, what can I factor out? Well, let's start with the numbers. They both have a 2, so I can factor that out. And then they both have a quantity, 2x minus 1. Actually, I could take out a 2x minus 1 to the third power from here. So that would be something that they have in common. That used to be called your GCF. And then what I like to do is I like to put a big bracket. And that GCF is now going to divide out of this quantity and this quantity, this group and this group. So let's see what we would have. If I take 2 from 8, if I divide it out, I have 4. If I take the 2x minus 1 to the third from a 2x minus 1 to the third, those cancel, but I still have this quantity, 2x plus 1. All right, now I'm going to go over to this group. When I go over to this group, I got to put my plus. 2 divided by 2, that doesn't go, that goes away. And then 2x minus 1 to the fourth, but I'm taking out 2x minus 1 to the third. Well, then I have 2x minus 1 left over. Well, now what you want to do here is you want to clean this part up that you put inside that bracket. Clean it up by like distributing and foiling it back out. So let's see, this would be 8x plus 4. And then you still have the 2x minus 1. And so then your final answer would be whatever's in the front, 2 times 2x minus 1 to the third, times the cleanup of the bracket. 8x plus 2x, which is 10x, 4 minus 1, which is 3. And that's your answer in a simplified, factored form. Let's try it again with negative exponents. So again, all we've done right now, we haven't even done derivatives yet. We're just doing basic algebra skills. So here's my two groups. Again, how do I know it? Because there's a plus sign. This is all multiplication. I've already written it so that the monomials are in front and the quantities are in the back. So I want to see what I can factor out from a 2x and a 6x squared. Well, you should know how to do that. That's algebra. So we could factor out a 2x. But they're both sharing a quantity x minus 5, except which power do I take out? Well, just like up here, you took the lowest power out that they shared. You're going to do the same thing here. You're going to take the lowest power out that they share. X minus 5 to the negative 1/2. And then put a bracket. So let's see. 2x, take out a 2x. Again, what you're doing is division, not really subtraction. This you're dividing out. Well, what do I have left? Well, I need a placeholder. I have 1. I have a 1 left. Okay, I've divided this whole quantity by this whole 2x divided by 2x is 1, not 0. I'm going to the next group now, so I'm going to put a plus. 2x divided by 6x squared. That's my dog. 6x squared divided by 2x would be 3x. And then x minus 5 to the 1/2. But you're dividing out an x minus 5 to the negative 1/2. That goes back up to here. When I divide like things, I subtract the exponents. So if I divide out negative 1/2 from a positive 1/2, 1/2 minus the negative 1/2 would be 1 quantity left over. Sorry about that. So now I'm going to distribute, and that would be 3x squared minus 15x, and then the plus 1. Now, I don't like the way that looks. I like to have my exponents in the front, then I like this written in a descending order. So this would be 3x squared minus 15x plus 1. That's what this quantity is. You still have this in front, but really anything with a negative exponent belongs where? Well, it belongs in the bottom. So we're going to leave this 2x on top, and then that x minus 5 to the 1/2 goes to the bottom and becomes positive 1/2. And that's the answer. Now, it's a lot of algebra skills, but we're going to use it for what we do now. And I've only got 2 problems to do. So let's try these 2 problems together. Okay? So the first one is find the derivative of 3x minus 1 over x squared plus 3 to the 3rd power. So what we're going to do is we're going to do u substitution with this. We're going to call this whole thing that's written in parentheses the u. So over here on the side, we're going to go u is equal to 3x minus 1 over x squared plus 3. And we're going to rewrite this then as u to the 3rd. Okay? And so we got a chain rule going on here because we need to take derivative of this and a derivative of that. 2 things going on at the same time. So let's start with this one. Let's take a derivative. Well, the derivative of this would be a quotient rule because this is a quotient. So let's go over how to do a quotient rule. It would be denominator times the derivative of the numerator, which is 3, minus the numerator, 3x minus 1, times the derivative of the denominator. What's the derivative of the denominator? It's 2x all over the denominator squared. Now, clean up that top, distribute, you get 3x squared plus 9. Distribute the 2x and the negative at the same time. You get negative 6x squared plus 2x over x squared plus 3 squared. And then, again, we can still simplify. We can combine some like terms here. So this would be negative 3x squared plus 2x plus 9 is on top over x squared plus 3 squared. Okay? So here's our u, and here's our u prime. All right, now let's go back over here. Let's take the derivative of u to the third. The derivative of u to the third is 3u squared times the chain. So what are we going to do now? We're going to replace the u with that u. We're going to place that u prime with that. And then we're going to simplify it. Okay? So let's bring down the 3. I like to put 3 over 1 because we're going to be dealing with fractions. And then u is this right here, 3x minus 1 over x squared plus 3 to the power of 2. U prime is this right here, negative 3x squared plus 2x plus 9 over x squared plus 3 squared. Now, if you get this far, you've done really good. You've done really most of the calculus right now. What you now need to do is goes back to those exponent rules, okay? You need to clean this up a little bit. So this 2 is going to distribute to each one of these quantities. So you're going to have 3 over 1. This is now going to be 3x minus 1 squared over x squared plus 3 squared. And then this, we're just going to leave it like negative 3x squared plus 2x plus 9 over x squared plus 3 squared. Well, what do you notice? These are the same thing. And when we multiply fractions, we multiply across. So the top, don't distribute, don't do anything, just leave it alone, just write 3 times 3x minus 1 squared times that whole quantity, negative 3x squared plus 2x plus 9. But the bottom I want you to clean up because 1 times this squared times the same thing squared, well, how many of those do you have? Well, you have x squared plus 3 to the 4th. And that is your final answer. Okay? Really simple problem. It's just cleaning it up. You got to get this far. But I'll be honest with you, if you get this far, you have really done most of the work. And I give you almost full credit. I take off a point or two for not cleaning it up. All right, let's do one more. Y equals x squared square root of 1 minus x squared. Okay, so again, this is a u problem. Anything of these complicated powers with roots and anything like that, we need to do some chain rule. So this is going to be my u, what's underneath the square root. 1 minus x squared. Might as well take a derivative of that while I'm here because that's pretty easy. So that'd be negative 2x. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to rewrite it with u's. So this would be x squared, and then this would be u to the what power if it's the root? Well, to the 1/2. And now this is a product rule because you're dealing with two different functions at the same time. All right, so let's work this out. Product rule says first times the derivative of the second. The derivative of u to the 1/2 is 1/2 u to the negative 1/2. But because it's a u, you have to attach the chain. Right? 1/2 minus 1 would be u to the negative 1/2 times the chain. So first times derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. The derivative of x squared is 2x. Okay, now everywhere you see a u, you're going to replace it with 1 minus x squared. And everywhere you see u prime, you're going to put negative 2x. So let's try to clean this up a little bit. We got x squared times 1/2. U is that 1 minus x squared to the negative 1/2. U prime is negative 2x. Then comes a plus. You're just literally following the formula. U again, 1 minus x squared to the 1/2, and then times 2x. Now again, This is the important step a lot of students make mistakes on. It's cleaning up, okay? I like any of my monomials to go to the front. I like them all to go to the front. So x squared, 1/2, and negative 2x can all go to the front. Remember, this is one group, and this is one group, because there's a plus sign. So 1/2 times negative 2x, well, that's going to become -1. So let's just cancel that out. So negative x times x squared is negative x cubed. Then I write my quantity in the back. Now I'm going to go over to here. I like to put that in front and then put my quantity to the back. All right, now I'm going to factor it. Now again, if you got this far, you are doing great. You're really doing great. You just need like one more step to kind of clean up, and that comes with practicing your algebra skills. So let's see, what can I factor out from this group and this group? Well, they both have an x. And they both have this quantity, 1 minus x squared, but which one do I take out, the negative 1/2 or the 1/2? Well, I take out the negative 1/2. And then I put my bracket. And then tell me what's left after you divide this out. Well, x divided out of a negative x cubed would be negative x squared. And then that just cancels. Now moving groups, so I'm going to put a plus sign. X divided by 2x would be 2. And remember what we talked about this in the beginning. 1/2 minus negative 1/2, because you're dividing, you would have one of the quantities left over, one of those 1 minus x squared. You could even put a little 1 here if you want to. Okay, it goes back to the whole x to the 1/2 divided by x to the negative 1/2. You subtract those exponents, keep the base, and subtract the exponents. 1/2 minus negative 1/2 is x to the 1. Okay, let me scratch that out so I got it. All right, now cleaning up, 2 minus 2x squared plus the negative x squared. So let's see, what do I have left over in here? Well, I have, these can combine, negative 3x squared, a plus 2. What do I have in front? I still have the x, but this quantity goes to the bottom. 1 minus x squared to the 1/2. And that would be the full credit. All right, hopefully that makes some sense.